Let's kick this off. My name is Suda Ratnam. I'm one of the partners at Raffingers, and I also look after the payroll within Raffingers. Hence the reason I've been drafted in to do this special webinar in regards to job retention scheme, the new scheme that kicks off from 1st of July. Sorry. Let's start with a bit of housekeeping. Please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and write your questions in there. If you see someone has already asked the same question, can you please click on the thumbs up icon to vote for that question to be answered. So try not to ask the same question that somebody else has answered. We've got a couple of people from payroll who are answering your questions. We'll try and make this webinar as interactive as possible. Can we also ask that when submitting a question in the chat, please ensure the message will be sent to all panelists and attendees so everybody can see your question and also they can see your answers. Also, can you please wait till I'm up near the end of the presentation so you can see before you start asking questions. I'm going to cover pretty much everything. I hope so. So just bear with me for a little bit to see where I am and then start asking questions. There's a little bit about Raffingers. I'm probably you already know a lot about us. Lee does a lot of the presentation throughout this pandemic. That's what we do. Let's start with what are we going to do today. Today's webinar is going to be, this is the plan of action for today. So first, I'm going to start off with the overview of the CJRS scheme, then changes from 1st of July. I'm going to also talk about employer contractual obligations, and I'll put light there. Just to warn you, I'm not a legal matters expert, so you should always seek legal advice when it comes to employment issues, because it could get tricky. So that's what I am qualifying this by saying I am not a legal expert. The next we'll go on to key changes that you need to take note of. Then after that, I will do some example calculations of the new scheme from 1st of July. I'll do both monthly and weekly. I'll try and make it simple so you understand how it works. We're also going to look at what's changing in August and October. There are more changes. Employers need to fund some of these, so I'll go through that. Then I'll go through HMRC compliant visits and review, they call it. They are going to be fairly strict with everyone on how they made the claims. And finally, I'll do a Q&A. I'll try and answer the questions that you guys have asked and try and answer them at the end of it. Let's start with the overview of the scheme. On the 12th of May, Chancellor announced an extension to the scheme. The scheme initially began on 1st of March. This allowed employers to furlough employees on 80% of their current salary, up to a maximum of £2,500. On top of that, you were able to claim the employer's NI and also employer's pension contribution to a maximum of 3%. The previous furlough scheme ended on 30th of June 2020, 2 days ago. Claims for the period ending on or before 30th of June must be made by 31st of July. They're giving you a month to make the claim up to 30th of July. Right, everything changes from 1st of July, 2 days ago. You have a choice where the employee can be either fully furloughed, i.e. keep them for the whole of July, or you can flexibly furlough them, bring them in whenever you want them and furlough them when you don't want them. You cannot furlough an employee for the first time from 1st of July. You can only furlough employees who have previously been furloughed for at least 3 consecutive weeks, taking place anytime between 1st of March and 30th of June. But what that means is if you haven't furloughed an employee for 3 consecutive weeks by 30th of June, ending 30th of June, you can't furlough them. They will not allow new furlough to start from July onwards. And later in the slide, I will show you a conversation I had with the HMRC online web chat to explain a little bit more on that. The coronavirus job retention scheme will close on 31st of October 2020. If they carry on like this, country will probably go bust. I'm not an economist, so I can't tell you that. What's happening? Right, 1st of July, employers who can claim CJRS, there is no change to it. Everything's exactly the same as before. Employers who could claim before, you can claim now as well. So there's no change in terms of the employer requirements. Employers receiving public funding for staff cost, right? If you are normally this happens with dentists, GP practices, nurseries. If you are receiving funding, if you're fully funded, then you can't claim it. If you're part funded, then you can. We have instances where nurseries and dental practices where they can only claim 25% of it because the rest is funded by the trust, NHS, or the local authority. Employees you can claim for, there is no change to it. You can claim for employees you can claim, there is no change to it. The basic rule of qualifying to claim is the same. There absolutely no change to it. Employees, what they can and cannot do while on a flexible furlough, that hasn't changed as well. So employees cannot, when they are on a flexible furlough, they cannot do any work for you to generate income. They cannot do any work for you to generate income. Keep that in mind. So it's a big no-no. How to make the claim, that hasn't changed. You still need to have online access to make the claim. Claims and corrections. So if you made a mistake, if you overclaimed, it's fairly simple. When you do the claim for July, you make the adjustment. When you do the July claim, there is a question it will ask you: are you making amendments for previous errors? And you tick it. That's it. It's fairly simple. You need to keep records for 6 years, obviously, like any payroll information. It is fairly simple. When it comes to underclaim, slightly different. You need to ring the revenue to make the claim because they are saying that they need to make some additional checks. Now, I've given you the phone number there. Once we will email you these slides for you to get these numbers, so you can write it down, or we will email you later on. So if you underclaim, you ring the revenue. It used to take about 15 minutes. Now they are answering within about 5 minutes. So they got better. So you ring them up, they will ask you a few questions, and that's it. You give the details and you should have the money. What's changing? Right, changes are happening in July, which I'll go into a lot more detail a little bit later on, and changes are happening from August onwards. The biggest change in August is you, the employer, will have to start funding for employers' NIC and pension contribution. You will have to pay out of your pocket for those people you furloughed. September, even more changes. What's happening is what you did in August, where you have to fund the employer's NIC and pension, you have to do that. On top of that, you have to fund another 10% of the furloughed amount. If you take the maximum furlough claim you can have, £2,500, the revenue will give you £2,187.50. You, the employer, will have to pay the balance of it, £320. £12.50. It's an additional cost to you. You need to plan ahead. Come to October, changes even further. You still have to fund the employer's NIC and employer's pension contribution. On top of that, now you have to fund 20% of the furloughed employee's salary. On a salary of a maximum salary of £2,500, revenue, the government will give you £1,875. You will have to fund £625. You need to find money to pay that. What's changing even more from 1st of July? There are no minimum furlough period. You can enter into flexible agreement more than once. So out goes the 3-week rule. So you don't have to furlough employee every 3 weeks. That's gone. Employers, the employers must report by number of hours. No more days, no more weeks. It's all hours now. Employers will need to report and claim for a minimum period of weeks. So the minimum period you can make a claim is a week. Maximum employees you can claim is the maximum employees that you claimed in the past 3 months. For example, if you claimed for 30 employees in April, 50 employees in May, and 40 employees in June, the maximum number of flexible furlough employees you can claim is 50, because 50 was the maximum that you claimed in May, and that's it. You can't claim 51. The system will not allow you to do it. Employers cannot claim additional employers NIC if they choose to top up. So if you top up under the old scheme, i.e. pre 1st of July, you were able to claim some of the employers NI from revenue. I'm not sure you're all aware of this. Hopefully you did the claim right and claimed the right amount. So before, if you top up and if you pay additional commission to employees, you were able to claim that. Not anymore. It was fairly difficult to calculate that NI, employers NI on the top up. We had to prepare a spreadsheet, and as you can see, the what if function went into lines and lines and lines. I'm just giving you an example of the amount of hassle we had to go through and the work, the revenue put us through to get to where we are. Contracts and letter templates. Best place for you to obtain this is the ACAS website. Visit the ACAS website on www.acas.org.uk/furlough-letter-templates. You should be able to get all of these from there. Seek legal advice to confirm if the agreement is in line with the required laws. It's always the case. You need to give reasonable notice to your employees for changes. So if you're bringing an employee from a fully furloughed to a flexible furlough, I suggest that you give them at least minimum a week notice, so they got plans, you know, childcare, something like that. They need to make plans to come and start working. So it would be reasonable minimum you give them a week notice. You would probably need to seek some legal advice on it, but I suggest that you have to give them enough notice so they make arrangements for their plans. If you flexibly furlough employees, you will need to agree this with the employee and keep a new written agreement that confirms the new furlough agreement, right? So if this new system new furlough starts from 1st of July, you need to keep a new agreement for it. The old one goes out of the window, new one comes into play. The revenue has said the employees are not required to provide a written response for this. I'm not sure how legally that stands, you know, employees not confirming the new agreement. I would suggest that to cover yourself, at least get an email or some sort of agreement with the employee to confirm that they've seen the agreement and they confirm it. You don't want to, you know, be in trouble later on. Flexible furloughing, and beware of things that's going to happen here. Right? These are key facts that I've kind of picked and collated for you to share it with you. Claims for any period before 1st of July 2020 must end on or before 30th of June. So the old furlough scheme, I repeat, finished on the 30th of June. So all claims up to that point has to finish on the 30th of June. This applies even if the employee furloughed in June continues to be furloughed full-time in July. I'm giving you an example here where an employee started a new 3-week rolling furlough on the 20th of June. So that employee has to be furloughed for 3 weeks. This is under the old rule, old scheme. What will happen is, I can see all three. Okay. What happens here is that the employee starts the furlough on the 20th of June and finishes on the 30th of June. So you have to do a claim for the 10 days from 20th of June to 30th of June. Then you have to do another claim from 1st of July to 10th of July. That's the 3-week ending. The furlough started on the 20th and ends on the 10th of July. Claims period starting from 1st of July must end in the same calendar month. It has to end in the same calendar month, right? It can't start on the 1st of July and finish on the 15th of July. Start on the 1st of July and finish on the 5th of August. It has to finish on the same month. Claims, it could be less than 7 calendar days only if the claim is for the last. Claims can be for less than 7 days if it's only at the end of the month and beginning of the month where you are, it's overlapping. Right. This is the conversation I had with HMRC. So somebody asked me a couple of days ago that can we furlough an employee for the first time who's not been furloughed previously, anytime between 30th of June and then flexibly furlough them once the 3-week continuous period ends. So basically what I'm asking at revenue here is, we missed the 10th of June deadline. Can we furlough somebody on the 20th of June and do a 3-week furlough and then put them on a flexible furlough? This was the answer from revenue. It says we can't. Let's start with some examples of what we're going to do here. I've got a very simple one here. There is no top up. As I said to you earlier, the top ups don't make any difference with the new scheme. There is no additional employers and now you can claim. So no top up here. Pay period, this is a monthly one I'm doing for you. Pay period is 1st of July to 31st of July. It's a calendar month as per the revenue guidance. Their base salary was 3,500 a month. Their normal working hours is 35 hours per week. So I worked out yearly calculation of 1,800 and a monthly calculation of 15166. How I did that, 1,820 divided by 12. Employees furloughed for the whole of the 31 days in July. Now I worked it out. The amount you can claim is 2,500 for the salary, 243.98 for the employers and and £59.40 for the pension. How did I do this? Now I'm going to go through in detail how I did the calculation. So we start with the £3,500, which is the employee's base salary. You looked at the previous screen. Divided that by 31. There are 31 days in July, and then multiply by 31. Yeah, the answer is the same, but you will know there's a method to this madness. That you will know why I did this to make it easy. So you come to the figure of 3,500, which is fine. Multiply that by 80%, which is the max you can claim, comes to £2,800. Now this exceeds the maximum revenue allow you, which is £2,500. So the grant is restricted to £2,500 here. Step 2 is calculating the employer's NI. Now, as I said to you previously, the employers and I, you don't get additional employers and I claim when you top up, right? So we start with the 2,500, which is the furlough grant you can claim. We calculated in step one. Deduct the £732. Remember, this is the NIC, employers NI threshold for 2020-21. So you take 2,500 minus £732 times 13.8 comes to £243.98. That's the maximum employers NI you can claim. Calculating the pension is pretty much the same. 2,500 is the furlough scheme, the furlough salary that we calculated earlier. You take the pension threshold for 2021 is £520. You take that off, then times that by 3%. So 2,500 minus 520, 3%, you come to £59.40. That's what I got the figures for you. 2,500, £243.98 and 59.40. That's what I showed you in the 3 screens before. Example 3. Slightly different. So only changed a little bit here. Again, there's no top up. Again, here for the whole calendar month. I'm assuming this is a monthly employee. Base salary stays at 3,500. To make life easy for you to understand, I'm claiming. Normal hours is 35 hours a week, exactly the same as example number 1. Now, the only thing that's changed is this employee is actually working 20 hours in the month. Now, the previous employee didn't work anything, didn't work, fully furloughed. This employee works 20 hours a month. That the employer told us that he's working 5 hours a week, so I made it to 20 hours. What you can claim is £2,170.32 for the salary, £211.77 for the employers and I, and £51.56 for the pension. I'm going to show you how the calculation is done here. Again, you start off with the £3,500 total pay. Now, earlier on in the example one, I said you times by 31 divided by 31 is the same figure you come to, and I said there's a method to the madness. Here you go. Now, it's 3,500 is the salary. You times that by 131 hours. So how did I get this 131 hours? 131 hours is made up of 151 hours is the employee's normal working hours. Employee worked 20 hours. So you take 20 hours out of that is 131 hours, 66 is the furlough hours in the month for the employee. So what I did was 3,500 times 131 divided by 151.66. You get a figure of 3,038.44, £3,038.44. That is the restricted amount of furlough time, furlough salary for the employee. So he's furloughed for 131 hours, and the salary relating to the 131 hours is £3,038.44. Now, 80% of that is £2,430.70. That's fine. Now, what we need to do is restrict the 2,500 max the revenue allows you to the same 131 hours only. You can't claim 2,500 for this employee because this employee wasn't furloughed through the full month. The first example, the employee was furloughed full month, so we did. This one, no, so we need to restrict it. So how do you do that? £2,500 times 131 hours divided by 151 hours. That comes to 217.32. So the maximum you can claim is £2,170.32 because it's lower than 243.75. Yeah. So the maximum you can claim in this instance is 2,170.32. Now you go to step 2. Right, now we're going to calculate the employer's NI that you can claim. First, you got the calculation of the salary, got that. Now you need to calculate or restrict the employer's NI to the furloughed hours. The employers and I for fully furloughed is £732 is the fully furloughed employees threshold limit. Here, the employee is not fully furloughed. So what we do is we need to restrict it. £732 times 131 hours divided by 151, the maximum 63547, right? So to calculate the employers and I, what we do is we look at the furloughed salary, which we calculated in step 1, which is 217.32, take away the £635.47, which is the employers and I restricted to the number of hours they were furloughed, times by 13.8%, you get £211.77. Then we go on to the pension, step 3. This is the final step, step 3. Exactly the same thing applies, only difference is the pension is limited to pension threshold for the month is £520. So that's all I've done here. I'm not going to go into too much detail in there. You can see it's works exactly the same as the employers and I did. Only thing that has changed is the 520. It's been replaced with 732. Now this is very interesting. This is a weekly one, and I try to put in as much information in here as to cover and also people to understand how this is done. There is no top up. Pay period is from 6th of July to 26th of July. So that's 3 weeks. I split the weeks into 6th of July to 12th of July, 13th of July to 19th of July, and 20th of July to 26th of July. The Feb base salary per week is £750. That's the base salary that you are paying the employee. How you calculate it, it's the same rules applied previously. If it's average, whatever fixed average, the same rules as previously applied. So same £750 a week is the base salary. Now the normal hours this employee works is 40 hours a week. Right. What I'm going to do is here, I've said the first week the employee works 10 hours. The second week from 13th of July to 19th of July, 20 hours. And the third week from 20th of July to 26th of July, the employee works 15 hours. Just to go back on something about these normal working hours, Revenue have changed this, the way you work normal hours per week. In this case, this employee works 40 hours a week, right? Revenue asking you to divide that by 7 days, even though this employee might be working only 5 days and 8 hours a week, 8 hours a day, 5 days. Revenue actually want you to divide that by 7. So it will come to less than 8 hours. Let's kick off the calculation. Step 1, working out the gross salary claim. I'm doing the first week starting 6th and ending on the 12th of July. Start with the basic salary of £750. Divide that by, ignore that. So this employee works 40 hours. His normal hours are 40 and he's worked 10 hours. So he's actually furloughed for 30 hours. To restrict it, this is what I've done. 750 is the salary times 30 divided by 40, because I'm only calculating the furlough element of the total salary, weekly salary. So I make it £562.50. That's the furloughed salary, furlough element of the salary. Now multiply that by 80%, which is what you can claim, comes to £450, right? Now, I need to check whether the weekly maximum set by the revenue is not breached here. Okay, so the weekly revenue maximum limit is £576.92. Now I need to restrict that to the number of furloughed hours here. Remember, this employee didn't work his or her contracted 40 hours. They only worked 10 hours, right? Or they weren't even furloughed for 40 hours. They only furloughed for 30 hours. So I need to restrict the £576.92 to the 30 hours. So what do? 57692 times 30 divided by 40 it comes to £432.69. That's the maximum revenue will allow you for that week as salary claim. Step 2 for the weekly, same thing. We go again and do the calculation for employers and I. All I have done now is replace the 576.92 with £169, which is the weekly employers and I threshold limit. So what I've done is 169 times 30 divided by 40 is 126.75. The weekly salary we calculated earlier that you can claim is £432.69. So 43269 minus 126.75 times 13.8, you get to £42.12. That's the maximum you can claim, employers and I. Now we calculate the pension exactly the same as what we did earlier on with the employers and I. Only thing I've done is replace the £520 monthly limit to 120, which is the weekly limit. 432.69 is the salary we calculated earlier in step 1. £90 is the restricted pension threshold. One minus the other times 3% comes to £10.26. That's the max you can claim. What I've done here is helped with calculating the salary for the other 2 weeks, week beginning 13th of July to 19th of July, and also 20th of July to 26th of July. Principle is the same. Only thing that is different is instead of I did 30 over 40 in week 1, in week 2, you need to do 20 over 40 because the employee worked for 20 hours and furloughed for 20 hours. You change that to 20 over 40. In week 3, I said the employee worked for 15 hours. All you need to do is change that. So 40 minus 15 is 25. So you change the formula from 25, from 30 over 40 to 25 over 40. That's all it is. The only thing is the formula is changing. Started off with 20 over 40. Then we ended up with, 30 over 40, then 20 over 40. Now we have 25, 40. That's it. Make sure you must restrict the NI and pensions to maximum furloughed hours. Remember that is very key here. What's happening in August to October? So the second example I did, we made that the employee will get a furlough salary of 217.32. You can get that from HMRC, and you could get the employer's NI of £211.77 and employee's pension of 51.56. Come to September, what's going to happen is for the same employee, revenue will only give you 1899.03. You will end up paying £271.29. Needs to come out of your pocket. October gets even a little bit worse for you. Revenue will only give you 1,627.74, and you will have to fund £542.58. Fraud and HMRC compliance. It's estimated over 30% of employees have been asked by their bosses to work while furloughed. HMRC are aware of this, and they think more than 30% of people employers are asking people to work while they're on furlough. They've already received about 3,000 claims. I think employees have reported to HMRC that they've been asked to work while on furlough. The government, the HMRC legislation is currently being rushed through and is likely to become law in early July as part of the Finance Act. So to do the checks, compliance checks, there's a legislation that's going through the Parliament as we speak. Employers will be given 30 days from the legislation comes into force to come clean to HMRC about mistakenly claiming. So as soon as the legislation comes into force, you will have a grace period of 30 days to put your hand up and say, look, we made a mistake. Random spots checks are likely. Penalties for those found guilty are likely to include fines for companies. This is a little bit more worrying. Directors of company which have subsequently been liquidated could face personal liability for falsely claiming furloughed costs. So take note of that. Imprisonment for convicted fraudsters is also a possibility, as exploitation of CJRS amounts to defrauding the Treasury. If you are a Raffingers client and there is help for you, you can email Gary at gary.hilton@peninsulauk.com, and he will help you with general inquiries. If it's something more specific, I think they will quote you a fee to charge for it. I'll just quickly go through questions, and it looks like there are only 4 open questions here, and I'll see if I can answer them for you. I'm not very good at these things, unfortunately. If you do like this presentation, what I suggest you do is send in us your comments, and I will try and do another one probably later on, early August or middle of August for you. I do sound a bit like a YouTuber, but try and send in your comments, and we'll try and do more of this. I think the guys in payroll have answered pretty much everything. I've got a question from Nikki here. Is the claim period when the employee worked or when they were paid? Right, the question here is the claim period when the employee, so you want to know the claim period when the employees worked or when they were paid. We have weekly paid staff who are paid a week in arrears. So those that were on furlough this week, June and July. Right, so this is a very good question. I think I thought I covered it earlier on. So the claim period has to be the same as your pay period, right? It has to be the same as your pay period. The claim period has to be the same as your pay period. If your employees, if your payroll runs from 5th of, say 10th of July to 16th of July, it has to be that. Even if you pay somebody in arrears, it doesn't matter. The claim period is for that period, the pay period, the payroll period, not when you pay them or not when you run the payroll. Doesn't. There's another question here. If I decided to stay closed for another 2 or 3 weeks after the 4th of July, which is the official green light date set by government, me being the director, owner, and sole workforce, can I still claim on the scheme, or do I have to be seen to open to try get business going again? Now that you're asking me a legal question here, there is nothing stopping you from being furloughed whole of July. But you can't, as you're the director and you're the sole employee of the company, you will not be able to raise sales invoices, I would say, but I'm not that you're getting into some real legal stuff in here. I don't think you can raise sales invoices. You can't generate income. If you're furloughed, you cannot generate income. You can't seem to be doing any work and generating income. Hope I've answered you that question. Do I include this week in June claim, even though we haven't run the payroll yet? I don't understand what that question is I'm asking. So let me explain to you slightly differently. So if you're running weekly payroll and it ends on the, say, 4th of July, revenue has said that you need to do 2 claims for that, one ending 30th of June and another one from 1st of July to the 4th of July. So if your week ends on the 4th of July, you need to do a claim up to 30th of June, and then another one from 1st of July to 4th of July. This is a problem for weeklies normally, because we find that weeklies don't run on a calendar month. No weeklies run on a calendar month anyway. Yeah. How do I claim the last week of June furlough for weekly paid periods? Right. Good question. What you need to do is, if the week straddles June and July, you split it. You claim up to 30th of June, and then whatever is remaining in July, you need to claim it. Revenue will allow you to do that. That's what I've been told. That's what the guidance says. That's what everywhere it's written in black and white. You have to do, even if it's 7 days that you're claiming, you have to split them up to 30th of June and remainder for the July. I did say to you earlier that, if you have a claim, the claim has to be for 7 days. The exceptions are here. At the end of the month, at the beginning of the month, you can make claims for less than 7 days. I run a pay period from 26th of the month to the 25th. How do I claim for that in the future? I get the July's claim will require a claim for 26th. I suspect that you will have to run a claim from 1st to the 25th. And if you can run the earlier, if you can run the next month earlier, then you'll have to do that again as well. I will have to come back to you on that. I have a feeling what you need to do there is run. So you will have to do 2 claims there. So you will do one from, in July, you will do 2 claims. You will run one from 1st of July to 25th of July. And then when you've done the August pay run, you will do one from 26th of July to 31st of July. And then you go on like that. But I think that's how it is. If you drop me an email, I'll come back to you on that. I'll confirm that. But I'm fairly certain you will have to run from 1st of July to 25th of July, 1 claim. And then you can do another claim for 6 days, isn't it? 25th to the 31st, 6 days. Yeah, 6 days. They will allow you to do 2 claims in July, if that's the case. But obviously, I understand you can't do the July, the claim beginning 26th of July till you do the August payroll, but you might have to wait and do it. Yeah, that's a cash flow problem for you. I think that's about it. There are no more outstanding questions. I can't see any more. Thank you for watching, and hopefully it's been fairly helpful to you. Send us your comments and we'll try and, if there is enough requests for it, we'll do another one for you later on in the month or early next month. Thank you for watching.